I tried to turn coffee failure into a game. Build it, break it, rebuild it, but coffee wouldn't sit still. And that's when I knew I failed. It's been a couple of months since I've actually started this saga, this idea, this logic, this adventure, so to speak, of making a coffee app. The app was named Brew Outside the Box. It's where you ask the AI bot questions about what you're brewing, why you're brewing it, help guide you along the way. Something that a lot of us haven't had before. And I was trying to do something different and unique and all that stuff, something that I could add to my arsenal of things that I given to people, right? And it started off great. It felt like a companion, it felt like somebody that I can just that I can just talk to about coffee brewing mainly, And it got to the point to where I was just bored, you know? And then one last attempt to like revive it, I changed it up. I changed it to a failure challenge. And I don't know if you've been on the channel long enough or just know the things that I do and all that, but there's been times where I've had a couple of different brewing challenges that I've given myself that have pushed me past my comfort zone, like 150 degrees Fahrenheit challenge, no stirring, using light roast and different things like that. A lot of fun. I should actually just bring it back, do some more challenges that way. But that was the concept, that was the idea, because after a while, you get bored with coffee, right? We want to try new things, new brewers, new gadgets, new things that we think that we need to do in order to spice it up, And the failure challenge was really good. It was like, yes, this is exactly what I needed to do for my whole idea and concept to give to people, to get people to like get out of their comfort zone without really buying much of anything, right? So I was going back and forth with Claude Code of seeing what made sense, what didn't make sense. Just kept hitting a wall. And then I eventually start getting bored with it again. And then I start asking more questions about this is the way the coffee behaves, this is what's going to happen and all that stuff. But one of the things that I started to realize in all of this is that the coffee was really the one who didn't care about challenges, didn't care about going through the build of a game. This is something that I finally realized is that an app can't really teach you. An app can't tell you if you're feeling bad that day that maybe your coffees are going to be off, or maybe they're going to be on when you just don't give a shit and just try something out the norm and you forgot what happened with the whole situation, It's not going to tell you that this Ethiopian white honey, for some odd reason, has a very slow drawdown. To not freak out about that. To realize that you can still bring the best out of this coffee, but you're going to have to let the time keep ticking and let the coffee keep brewing. The app couldn't teach me that no matter what I did to this particular Colombian medium roast, it was going to be sublime, delicious in each and every way. It couldn't really tell me that. And as I was testing and getting frustrated with this whole app, I started to come to the conclusion that the biggest lessons, the biggest teachers in all of this is me just brewing a cup of coffee, seeing what it's all about, seeing what I liked, didn't like, jot it down in a notebook, or just remember for next time. The other thing I could have done more, which I'm still working on, is seeing how high that coffee has been grown, how it was selected and picked. Those are some of the things that I didn't take in consideration when I was doing all of this. And how could I? I was just trying to be simple. I was trying to give something to you to the point to where it was just going to work and you're going to learn all the things that you wanted to learn about coffee and different recipes and just figuring it all out. But the figuring it all out comes from the struggle, the actual reasonings of why things are not working the way they are. And then you brew another one, and then you brew another one, then you see what other people are doing. Then you go to a cafe and you see how they actually brew their cup of coffee. And then you try light, medium, and dark roast, everything in between. You try to reshaped cone filter. You realize that it's acidic, that the coffee that it promotes, it brings that more out of it soon or not, or just on a whim. You start playing around with that bottom drippers. You start to understand the different chemistries and different profiles of what you're drinking. If it's a wider type of brewer versus a narrower one. You start to pick up on things like that, nuances like that, and flavors and tasting notes and coffees that you just gravitate more to. An app couldn't teach you that. It couldn't. And I thought it could. I thought I was going to speed up the process, but there's no speeding up this process. We have to go through it. We have to just go through it. There's no best way to say it, really. You have to go through this whole journey. You have to get frustrated. You have to get mad. And that's one of the biggest lessons that I learned with this whole thing. Is that I was just sitting there and just wondering and pondering and just like, okay, that's the lesson right there. You're not going to get this figured out in a couple of sessions of playing around with an app. And besides, one of the things that I realized with this whole thing, as I was making this app towards the end, was that the AI bot, I call them Bloom actually, I have two of them, Bloom and Ruby, my Cloud Code peeps and all that, is that they started to ask me questions. They started to ask me like, we don't actually drink coffee. We don't actually know how it tastes if you push coffee past this parameter, take a variable out, or compromise it. It didn't understand that. It's been trained on a lot of different things, tons of stuff. And then it started asking me those type of questions. And then I started to stop and realize that I was going to be at this forever. That I will always have to constantly give it information from my own experience of what I was tasting, how it was making me feel. And then we haven't even gotten to the whole part of being lazy with the whole terminology of saying this is a Colombian, this is the way it's going to operate. We already know that's not true. We already know that A Colombian down the street, a Colombian in the exact same farm, processed differently, can taste drastically different. So even by me naming the farm and where it's at and the elevation and all that stuff, that's barely the information. That's just information. That's just get us started on the things that we think that we should know. Knowledge, right? So as I sat there and just kind of kept pondering about this whole logic, I finally came to the realization that we have to go through it. We have to do all the things that we're trying to do with coffee. We have to take a recipe from somebody. We have to use the recipe and see what it's all about. Then we have to start asking ourselves, why did they select this coffee or this parameter or this way of making coffee? What if I try it this other way? Will it bring different extractions out of the coffee? Will I prefer that version better? Will I realize that I'm not so much of a lightly roasted type of guy? Not even a cold brew. We have to go through this whole journey. There's nothing that anybody can actually teach us to the point to where we can enjoy it the way that we want to, or just get frustrated because it's not working. We have to go through it and experience it and enjoy it and love it and do all the things that we know that we need to do with this whole thing that we call coffee. So yeah, it didn't work out for me. I'm not saying that all apps are bad. Probably mine's the approach is terrible. There are some apps out there that just really just helps us throughout our lives. But it's interesting though, now that I'm thinking about this, is that sometimes when we like give other things the opportunity to do something and change our lives for the better, we start to strip away the things that really do matter and why it matters. But don't get me wrong, it was fun. It was a novelty from time to time to open up this app and to tell this bot that I was brewing this particular coffee. And I just wanted something that was challenging. And sometimes it worked. Sometimes it stopped me in my track, just like when I was playing around with the Mocha Master. Like actually turning it off, giving it a bloom, drastically improved the coffee. Was it over extracted? Probably. But it was tasty. It got me outside of my box. I know some people have done that before, right? Tinkered with it and did this and did that. But it allowed me to just trust the process, trust the situation that I was in. And that's more so the thing that we have to realize with all of this, is that we can do this without an app. We can sit down. We can see where our coffee journey is at. We can realize or pick up on patterns like, why is my coffees always acidic? And then I can start to think about the water, how that plays a part, the actual brewer. Then I'll start to change one variable, read this in a book or online forums or whatever it may be. You start to develop your own recipe, your own formula, and you know why it works for you. You start to get out of your comfort zone of all of this. You start to play around with different foods and whatever it may be, to pick up on some of the flavors that some people will say about coffee. That's what needs to happen. This whole coffee game is a game. We don't need an app for that. And once we start to realize that, depending on whatever you're doing and taking the information from whatever you're doing, we'll start to realize that we can do anything that we want to. Focus and be determined and figure this thing out as long as we stay present with this whole thing. So yeah, I failed. I failed at making an app. But for some odd reason, I say this a lot of times, you'll start to realize that this is who I am, is that I don't run away from failure. I try to use it for what it is for me. And then I try to use these opportunities. I'm so blessed and so happy that I'm actually documenting this to give to you as a small gift, I guess, is that these are the things that we need to start asking ourselves. You know, the questions of like why this is happening. You know, why did we fail? What is our definition of failure? Those are some of the things that we have to do in order to bring the most out of this whole thing that we call coffee. Because we will fail without this app. We will fail with this app. We will fail no matter what. But the growth comes when we realize why we didn't like what we didn't like, or why we couldn't make that same recipe. So, what are the things that you failed at? Was it an app? Was it a brew technique that you didn't truly understand all the way? Were you feeling bad that day? I don't know. You tell me. I'm just one person. It's one person just trying to make it work. And for the most part, I can only do that for myself. You have the opportunity to do what you can for yourself so you can grow in this whole thing. This is OK at Everyday Beans signing off. Let's talk about it. Talk to you later. Bye.